It's a cold, rainy January 2017 morning. Anyway, in this, our second episode of how to convert your vehicle, your car, from gas to electric, we're going to talk about lithium batteries. So, first off, let me apologize for all the background noise. It is a very rainy day, and we have a metal roof in this building, so it gets quite noisy, and the rain is predicted out for the next 14 days plus. And in this episode about batteries, we're going to talk about the types of lithium batteries, placement, containment, BMS, charging, safety, and care, and as with every episode, my recommendations. And so let's get started, and we'll talk about the different types, or some of the different types of lithium batteries. There are just a huge number of different chemistries out there, and so we're just going to talk about a few. Let's start with lithium cobalt oxide. Now, they're not real good with the number of life cycles, low number of life cycles, low thermal stability, and they have limited load capabilities. But by adding other elements, they can improve on that. Next, there's lithium manganese oxide, and it's used for, commonly used for power tools, medical instruments, hybrids, and EVs. Lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide, and it's often used in power tools and electric bikes. The next one's one that's fairly common to most people, or fairly well known, commonly called lipo-4s. Those are the lithium iron phosphate cells, and they have excellent safety. They have a long lifespan, and they have moderate energy density, so they're not the greatest when it comes to weight, volume, and energy, but they're good for other reasons. Next, we have lithium iron manganese phosphate. They have good safety qualities also, but they're not as good in cold weather as some of the other chemistries, and they have greater voltage sag under load compared to the lipo-4s. Next, we have lithium nickel cobalt aluminum oxide. High energy and power densities, and they have good lifespan, but they have high cost and marginal safety. And last on our little list here is lithium titanate. They have long life, they'll charge quickly, wide temperature range, but they have low specific energy, they're expensive, but they are amongst the safest lithium chemistries. So the two that are the most common currently amongst converters are the lipo-4 and the GBS cells, the lithium iron manganese phosphate. Now, they're popular for a couple reasons, or several reasons. One is the safety aspect, the availability of the cells. They don't require a BMS. So out of those two, though, I have a preference. And I prefer the lipo-4s. And they're safe, they're rugged, they're easy to bottom balance. They're not as temperature sensitive as the lithium iron manganese phosphate. And they don't have as much sag under load. And another reason is the interconnects. The GBS cells use these 4 little screws to hold your interconnects to the terminals, and they're a real pain. whether they're Allen head screws or Phillips head screws. Whereas with the Calb cell, you have two 8mm bolts. Here you have 6 more fasteners. So that's another reason why I prefer the Calb cells. So in regards to placement, it's very important to safely mount the cells in the vehicle to withstand most collisions. They should be easy to reach. You do have to service the cells. In other words, you want to be able to have them where they're easy to get to and inspect, because you want to be able to keep them clean. You want to be able to check the interconnects periodically, make sure they're still, that they're tight. The cells need to be placed in such a fashion that they're protected from road hazards. You want to keep them out of direct sunlight. And the best mounting locations, of course, is going to be between the axles and as low as possible. So in the case of the Karmann Ghia, the cells are located right here, in front of the rear axle, behind the seats, and the top of the cells is about right here. So they're nice and low. So the weight is kept between the axles and down low, which really makes a difference on the handling. Another thing to remember in placement of the cells is if the vehicle had, say, a pickup truck where it has most of the weight up front, you want to continue to have that same amount of weight up front, and any additional weight you would put, say, under the bed. A lot of people will put all the batteries under the bed. The downside of that is the truck was originally designed, suspension and braking and everything, to have a certain amount of load on the front end. And so you basically want to replicate what the weight balance was from the factory in order to maintain those engineered in qualities. BMS, most of you have heard about BMS, and it can refer to two things. One, it could refer to battery management system, which is what it's probably most commonly used for. I refer to it as battery monitoring system. And I think you should design your conversion with a battery monitoring system. Just like you would monitor your internal combustion engine. You're going to monitor your oil pressure, your water temperature, so forth. You need to monitor your EV system. And the battery pack is just one of those things you want to monitor. Now, as far as a battery management system, why? Now, it's not necessary if you use the recommended cells. You only need to manage lithium cells or cells period, batteries period, if they're going to drift from one another in either voltage or capacity. And other parameters such as, temperature sensitivity, which is true of some of the lithium chemistries. They're much more sensitive to temperature, have a much lower thermal threshold, and so those you would want to manage. I prefer not to use those chemistries because I want to go on the side of safety, and I'm going to use a little safer chemistry, in which case I also don't have the hassle and expense and problems of having a battery management system. Charging. In regards to charging, a common question is, how long does it take to charge? I've heard that question, hundreds of thousands of times. So let's talk about what affects charging time. Well, one would be the size of your battery pack. The larger the pack, it's just like filling a tank of water. The larger the tank, the longer it will take to fill. And so the other aspect will be the charger itself. What size of pipe are you using, or size of hose are you using to fill that tank? Same is true with your battery pack. At what rate can you put energy back into it? So that comes down to the charger. It also comes down to the input to the charger. You're going to get, more in, more out. So a level 2 charger will charge faster than a level 1. A DC fast charger will charge faster than either of those. And so we'll talk about those. A level 1 charger is 110 volts, 15 amps maximum. Level 2 is 208 to 240, 50 amps maximum. And then the one that, everybody desires is the DC fast charge. That's your Chademos, your Tesla superchargers. Those are all DC fast charge setups. So those are the 3 current charging protocols currently: level 1, level 2, and DC fast charge. So when you plug in your vehicle, what you're doing is you're plugging in your onboard charger is all you're doing. So when you go to a charge station, it's simply an outlet. That's simply the power source to power your charger. Some people like to relate to charging in miles per hour of charge. How many miles will I get for every hour of charging? And I don't normally think of it that way, but that is a very real world way to look at it. Let's talk about caring for these batteries. Remember the battery pack is still the single greatest expense in a conversion. And so you want to take care of it. And to take care of it, you want to keep them clean. You want to keep the interconnects tight. This is an example of a loose interconnect. And I mean, it was snug, it wasn't tight. And it was caught early on. But you can see, due to that extra resistance of that loose connection, created heat. And that heat started to melt the case of the cell. Very important to keep those interconnects tight. Another thing in care for your cells is you want to keep them charged. I hear every so often that people say, oh, I only need to charge once a week, or I only need to charge every other day. I recommend charging it every day. And the reason for that, there are 2 things that adversely, there are others, but 2 of the most common things that will adversely affect the life cycles of your cells is the depth of discharge, that's how much you discharge that cell between charges, and the rate of discharge. So if you're a hot rodder like I am, that's a negative on your cell cycle life cycles. So keep that in mind. Changing your driving habits is probably more difficult than plugging the car in when you get home every night. Okay, now this is towards the end of our list, but believe me, it's not least, and that is safety. These cells have a huge amount of potential. And one of these cells can deliver over 2,000 amps for several seconds. And if you drop your glasses, if you have wire rimmed glasses or jewelry, wristwatch or something, screwdriver, ratchet, whatever it may be, you probably won't do it more than once. The cell terminals are rather close together on most of your lithium cells, and so that just makes it that much easier to have a short. Work carefully. Be conscious of what you're doing.
and of the
You
potential.
really want to have the proper respect for these cells. And so always work safely, use insulated tools, have your workspace clean and organized, remove jewelry. If you wear glasses, I'm fortunate, I can't see far away, but I can see up close, so I don't wear my glasses when I'm working in the shop. But if you have to wear glasses to see what you're doing, make sure you get one of those cords that would keep them on, around your neck, so that if they did fall off your face, they wouldn't fall and short out. So if you want to know more about safety, not just with the cells, but in the conversion process as a whole, then I recommend that you attend one of our 3-day hands-on conversion workshops, because we go through all the safety things to consider, as well as everything else in regards to your conversion. Okay, this week's recommendation is safety. Choose safety. Choose a safe battery chemistry. Design your conversion with safety in mind. Work safely and drive safely. All right, next Wednesday, part 2 of batteries. Some of the items that we're going to talk about in that episode will be calculating range, bottom balancing, how many cells do you need, and balancing weight, range, and cost. So thank you for watching. I'm Richard, and I hope to see you again next Wednesday.